everyone, welcome and welcome back to 1/6 scale. This is another Barbie sweater tutorial video, but this time we're going to make the Barbie sweaters from fluffy socks. I made this sweater from a regular pair of socks, and if you're interested in making this sweater, I'll leave a link to that video down below. In this video we're making a fluffy sweater and then also a matching fluffy hat, and then these sweaters are slightly different than the first ones I made. The first ones I sewed on a waistband and then also a cuff. And these sweaters, you don't have to sew on a waistband, and then you don't have to sew on a cuff. They're made from 4 rectangles, one from the front and one from the back, and then one for each arm. And then to finish the sleeves, I folded this one under and sewed it just to give it a finished look. And then I also folded the fabric up in the opposite direction and sewed it, and then it gives it the look of a raised cuff. The sweater and the hat is made from 1 sock, so with a pair of socks you can make 2 sweaters and 2 hats. And this portion of the sock is going to be for the body of the sweater. It has a very elastic opening, so that's going to be the waistline. And then this portion of the sock is going to be for the sleeves, and then the toe of the sock is going to be the hat. For the hats, you can make them plain like this one, and then you can also put a pom-pom on top. And for the pom-poms, we're going to make that out of wool. The measurements for the sweaters are made to fit all 4 of the Barbie body types: the original, the petite, the curvy, and the tall. You can also customize them and make them smaller or longer. For the petite doll, you can make the waistline shorter and the sleeves shorter. And then for the tall doll, you can also make the waistline longer and also make the sleeves longer. The sweater has an open neckline, but you can also style them differently. For this sweater, I put a raised collar underneath. For this sweater, I put a turtleneck underneath. And for this sweater, I had another shirt that had a collar on it, and instead of flipping the collar up, I just folded the collar down. You can find these fluffy socks at most stores, but when I'm making Barbie clothes from socks, I like to get them at the dollar store. They're lower price and they're definitely more cost effective. So I found these ones at the Dollar Tree, and they're really soft and fluffy, and for a Canadian Dollar Tree they're $1.50, and I think they're $1.25 in the US. It's still a really good price. And then I also found these at our Canadian dollar store, which is Dollarama, and it's $3.50, but you get 2 pairs, so that would be $1.75 for each pair of socks. The sweaters and hats are fun to make, and they're really quick to make, so grab your fluffy socks. Let's get started. To make this sweater, start with a fluffy sock, turn the sock over, and the opening of the sock is going to be the waistband for the sweater. Measure up 4 inches from the opening of the sock, mark it with a straight pin, and then cut across. Cut the sock material on both sides, making 2 pieces, one for the front and one for the back. Place the 2 pieces of fabric together so that the inside of the fabric is on both sides. At the top, measure in 1/4 inch from the outside and mark it with a straight pin, and then repeat that on the other side. Starting at one side, sew across with a crossover stitch, and then stop at the straight pin, and then sew back using a straight stitch. And then repeat that on the other side. This is how the sweater looks so far. We have a front and a back, and we have an opening for the neck. Next, we're going to sew around the neckline to give it a finished look and also to prevent all the little fluffies from falling off. Start at one end of the neck opening, fold over some of the fabric, and then start sewing. Continue folding over the fabric and then continue sewing. And then when you're done the first half of the neckline, continue folding and sewing the fabric on the other half of the neckline. The neck opening sewn all around, and we have a front and a back, and now we need some sleeves. To make the sleeve, we're going to use the foot of the sock, and we don't need this heel portion, so we're going to cut that off. From the top of the sock, measure down 3.5 inches, mark it with a straight pin, and then cut it off with your scissors. Save the toe portion of the sock because this is what we're going to use to make the hat. Cut the piece of sock in half to make 2 pieces, one for each sleeve. Fold the fabric in half and measure 1.25 inches and mark it with a pin. And at the bottom of the folded edge, measure in 3/4 inch and then mark it with a pin. Cut the sleeve on an angle so that it's narrow on the bottom and wider on the top. And repeat that on the other piece to make 2 sleeves. While the fabric is still folded, remove one of the pins and place it at the fold, and then remove the other pins and open up the sleeve. To attach the sleeve to the sweater, take the pin and match it up with the shoulder. Sew it a couple of times to hold the fabric together, and then remove the pin. Match up the sleeve with the front and the back of the sweater and sew across with a crossover stitch, and then sew back using a straight stitch. And then repeat that on the other side to make 2 sleeves for the sweater. For the sleeves, we're not going to sew on an additional cuff. We're just going to fold over the fabric to give them a finished look. Measure in 1/4 of an inch from the outside of the sleeve, fold it over, and sew across. And when you fold it over, it gives the sleeve a finished look. To make the sleeve with a raised cuff, flip the sweater over so the right side is facing up. Fold the end of the sleeve over 1/4 of an inch and sew across. And then when you fold the sleeve, you get a raised cuff. The sweater is ready to sew together. Pick the sweater up at the shoulders and match up the body and match up the sleeves. I pinned the sweater together at the arms and the body, and to sew it together, start at the sleeve, continue to the middle, and then continue sewing down the body. And then repeat those steps on the other side. And when the sweater is all sewn together, turn it right side out, and there's your very fluffy Barbie sweater in a 1/6 scale. To make the hat, we're going to use the toe portion of the sock. Take this portion of the sock and turn it inside out, and then pin it on both sides to make it 2.5 inches wide. Using a straight stitch, sew on one side of the hat, and then when you get to the top, sew on a slight angle to give the top of the hat a curved look. Everything you've done on this side, also repeat that on the other side. Once you finish sewing both sides of the hat, cut the extra fabric off of both sides and be careful not to cut the stitches that you've just sewn. And here's the hat completely sewn. It's straight on the sides and then it curves at the top. Place the hat on the doll's head and then roll it up to form a band on the front and the back. And there's the fluffy hat to match the sweater. To make the pom-pom, wrap some wool around your finger approximately 15 times. You can wrap it more or less times depending on what size that you want your pom-pom to be. And cut off a long piece of the wool. Wrap the wool around the loop and then wrap it again around your fingers to make a knot. And now it looks like a bow with loops on each side. With your scissors, cut off the loops on both sides and then fluff up the wool to form your pom-pom. Trim the wool to make all the pieces the same size and to give it a round shape. To attach the pom-pom to the hat, thread the wool using a large needle. Place a straight pin on the hat where you want the pom-pom to be, and then place the needle at that point, and then remove the straight pin and then pull the wool through the hat. And to secure it, turn the hat inside out and then sew it a couple of times, loop it to make a knot, and then cut off the excess wool. And there's the fluffy hat with a pom-pom. That's how you make a Barbie sweater and hat from a fluffy pair of socks. And I hope you enjoyed this video and you give this DIY a try. And if you're new to my channel, subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. See you next time.